Welcome to Umi and a Cup of Tea, the podcast from Umi where we discuss all things technology, marketing, hotels and travel. So grab yourself a tea, coffee or something stronger and we'll jump right in.
Okay, welcome back. You are listening to part 2 of our hotel automation podcast. We've already, if you're listening to this and you haven't already listened to part 1, then I do suggest that you go back and listen to that part 1 first. But if you have already listened to that, then we're going to jump right back into part 2 with myself, Laurence, and my guest, Harry. So, see you there. Right, how can we empower your sales department?
Ooh. So I guess the traditional flow, right, is marketing feed sales with leads and with prospects and downloads and all sorts of things like that. Now, I think that quite often the sales team, it will mostly deal with things like they'll have an email inquiry and that'll be largely it. But I think this is where using a CRM in conjunction with sales, because at the moment I'd say that marketing is in charge of the CRM and sales probably deals with stuff a bit more separately, right? A little bit more separately. But I think the part that where we can empower the sales team is by bringing the two a little bit closer together. For example, let's someone has writes in, I'm looking for XYZ. The chances are the salesperson's not going to have context to all of that, because most of the engagement up till that point is probably via the marketing team and the channels there. And as soon as that lead is created, then it's in the sales pipeline, which may or may not be the CRM, right? Like, for example, a lot of the big hotel-specific CRM systems out there, they're not sales pipelines. They'll be usually run alongside something like Salesforce, and so you've got two silos there. And if you're in Salesforce, none of that information is coming over from Revenate or Sendine or whatever, on the most part, because it's not a pipe. It's not a sales tool. It's a marketing tool. I'd say it's a sales and marketing tool, but I think the sales team would disagree, and the marketing teams love it, but I don't think the sales team would say that.
So when we're talking about creating sales, are we talking about individual bookers, or are we talking about more business bookings or group bookings? Somebody who's like professionally sort of trying to organise directly with the hotel.
I think both. I think sales has a far more of an impact commercially when it comes to the sort of the ad hoc higher ticket items, just because most people are probably very unwilling to part with the types of money that are behind a wedding without speaking to someone. It just doesn't happen. Whereas you book a double room for a couple of nights, you don't necessarily need to speak to someone for that. So the higher the ticket, sales becomes more influential as the ticket item goes, becomes more expensive. But there is a lot of fuzzy gaps in the middle. There's a lot of people wanting a weekend away, and they kind of want to know what's around, what's available. They probably need to be sold outside of the regular marketing channel, outside of marketing collateral. So there is a fuzzy bit in the middle, somewhere between a one-night stay in the middle of the week that's going to cost me £100 and a wedding. There is a gap in the middle of that. Groups in particular, groups. Weekends away. If there's like commercial, going through the sort of GDS and RFPs and things like that. There is a sales marketing overlap in the middle there.
Mm-hmm. And so so we're basically looking to try and close those gaps with automation.
It goes back to that feed access to the right data.
Yeah.
How do we know when, if someone gets in touch about some rooms and a salesperson is responsible to that, has that person, stayed before? Are they subscribed to the newsletter? Have they engaged with any campaign activities before? Are they the right person? What sort of target market they in? Are we able to offer them any? Promotional stuff? Well, I guess the sales team would probably already know that, but it's just about making sure people have access to the right data, because marketing and sales typically have operated in two different data silos.
Sorry, I think Coconut had something to share.
It was very quiet. Do you know what? It wasn't very loud, so I heard it, but
Coconut is my dog, if anybody's wondering. I think he's just woken up and wants to say hello. Okay. Now then, automated marketing.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that's a bit more familiar to me. So tell us about that.
So automated marketing, it is a process by which you can use triggers and actions to effectively move someone automatically through a marketing process or a marketing funnel, sales funnel, whatever. From the awareness phase through to the consideration phase, and then through to action, purchase, pre-stay, post-stay, etc. Now, the types of messaging that someone's going to need at those different stages is going to, on the most part, predictably change. Okay, so at the awareness phase, the mediums that people are researching, it's all about inspiration, aspirational content. It's creating a need to travel, or creating a need, or identifying and hooking into a desire. Now, as you move to the next phase, you've then got information around. Okay, I'm in the consideration phase. I'm now weighing up my options. So we now start to get into why you? Why my hotel? Why my destination? The types of information there are more, comparative. They're more trust. We've got trust start to come in around, rated, number one on TripAdvisor and all this kind of stuff. And so that consideration piece just predictably requires different types of information. And then finally, as we get through to the action, the purchase phase, it's about risk mitigation. Can I cancel if I need to? Am I definitely getting the best rate? Am I able to use an offer? And when you can start predictably, when you can predict the types of information people need at different parts of the funnel, we can start automating how we communicate with someone. So, for example, if someone, is signs up to the newsletter to download a photo book of some cool recipes from the Michelin star chef or something like that, we know that it's clearly in that aspirational phase. Now, the more someone, you can then have a whole bank of content that is going to tap into the reason why they engage with you in the first place. And then as soon as they start, if we can detect, and we can through clicks and through various tracking, someone actually showing a bit more intent towards certain dates or booking or staying or comparing, looking at menus, that's definitely showing intent. We can actually start delivering them slightly different bits of information around, whether it's promo codes, whether it's sending them last minute triggering a bit of last minute availability out to people that have shown that intent, that perhaps live close by. And then once we've detected someone that perhaps has actually gone to the booking engine, maybe even got to the cart.
So how are we delivering that? Are we using remarketing for that?
Yeah, so remarketing, a lot of CRM systems can actually tap into certain triggers. We can trigger through IP matching and hashed email addresses. We can use particular, quite often we are combining this with paid media campaigns. So we can actually use things like UTM parameters, such as the campaign ID, a bunch of information that you can put into the tracking of an ad, the link of an ad to actually to trigger certain segments, to trigger certain actions, and events as well. So a lot of CRM systems are able to hook into the user journey and respond by sending out specific pieces of types of information depending on where they've got to. So that's kind of looking at the maybe the sort of the email part, the messaging part. But we can also go into the advertising stuff. We can trigger certain campaigns to certain people based on how far they've got and also what they've interacted in. A massive part of how we deal with our digital advertising is by hooking the user journey into the content strategy for the ads. So, for example, if someone has browsed 5 days in May, they've interacted with the number of children in the drop down, we're able to quite predictably think that they're looking for a family getaway because we've got children in the drop down, we've got a bank holiday weekend perhaps, and so the types of advertising we can and the types of messaging we can then pass through are then automatically and in an automated way tailored to them. Some say it's personalization. I think personalization is the only way to do that at scale is through automation. So So
you've touched on a topic that I'm personally quite interested in, and that's obviously the planning of the website strategy and creating areas of specific content that therefore can tell you if somebody's been on that page, then they have a specific need in mind, and there's a specific reason that if they're looking for some information on, let's think of an example. Activities in the local area that are, sort of a romantic getaway, then essentially you can assume that they're looking at a romantic getaway rather than a business trip during the week, and therefore, if you can remarket to them with a romantic offer, let's say, then that's going to hit home better than it is if you just send them a generic offer. And I suppose that is the strategy in and of itself when you're planning out your website, is to really have a look at who your ideal customers are and map out a funnel that allows you to quickly understand where they are in that funnel, so that once they've hit the website, you can drop a cookie on them and send them any offers. We were talking earlier, obviously, about direct booking strategies, and sometimes if people have come to the website, in a lot of cases they're coming to the website from an OTA, and they are at that consideration stage. Sometimes it can be very hard at that stage to convince them not to book with the OTA because of as we know, OTAs offer tremendous cancellation policies and stuff like that.
Nothing that you can't do direct, but
no, yeah, agreed. But also, OTAs tend to have already. If you're an independent hotel, then the chances are the guest may not have heard of you before, so you don't necessarily have any of those trust signals built up, or you can't bank any of that trust that they may already have with the OTA. So we sometimes often say that it can be quite hard to win direct bookings at this stage of the buyer's journey. And obviously one way to mitigate that is to improve your offer, but another thing is to look at trying to approach people earlier on in that buyer's journey. And from my point of view, that is turning towards your local area businesses that are offering experiences or attractions, something that that people are going to travel to that area for when they're planning their trip, and therefore will need a hotel to stay at. So if we can reach out to our local network, as it were, and build some impressive offers with them, then automatically when people go and visit these websites, these companies that offer attractions and experiences, if you can offer a compelling offer to stay at your hotel, then you're piggybacking the trust signals that are coming from that particular business, and therefore we can attract a potential guest at that stage, which is much earlier, before they're even thinking about looking at all the competition that they see when they look at the OTA in your area.
Yeah. Absolutely. Couldn't put it better myself.
And also as well, when we think about different customers as well, we also think about different revenue streams. So weddings and also, events as well. We can set up different funnels and send different information based on whatever we've seen somebody interacting with, whether they're interacting with the page or they've downloaded a brochure. We can target specific offers and information based on that.
Sure.
Okay. Automated guest messaging.
Ooh.
Is that on our list?
It is.
Yeah. Okay. What do you want to say about that?
So I guess we're slightly tapping into the messaging from the marketing side of things, but it just then takes a turn into different systems. Now, a lot of different systems do a lot of the same thing. So, for example, when you make a booking, let's say you've got you signed up to a new booking engine, or you've made your own or whatever. You need to send out confirmation emails. Now, the confirmation email can either be sent out by the booking engine. You can do it yourself. It can be sent out by the property management system. It can be sent out by the CRM system. There's so many, guest communication overlaps so much across the tech stack. So much so that you've now got, because it overlaps so much, and sort of a lot of different people do it in a reasonable way, you've now got dedicated custom messaging tools like Duve, and which are purely about guest communication. So they'll tap into the property management system, identify who are the upcoming guests. People will be able to log in and actually see their reservation information, and interact and communicate with the hotel via a guest messaging application. So with regard to automation, I don't have enough information on all the mechanics of how it'll work, but you will certainly be able to push notifications out. You'll be able to ensure that the guest knows exactly what they need to know, just through a different channel, based on all the information that they've perhaps pushed into the property management system, ideally with a bit more notes and other stuff, other segments and custom fields that you can put into the PMS as well. But which is I know that is possible, to have sort of bits of custom information.
Yeah, I think one thing we're seeing with a number of our clients is that move towards offering a more independent stay, whether it be with furnished apartments, and whether it be with the younger traveller who may or may not relish face-to-face communications, as you would usually expect from a hotel with a concierge or receptionist. People are looking towards their phones to be able to, add things onto their stay or control their stay, but also communicate via a text or whatever. You mentioned Duve just then. So yeah, there's that expectation for the younger traveller who's more tech savvy to have this ability to control their stay more independently. Is quite useful. Okay, can you think of any other systems at all other than Duve?
Not that I know a huge amount about, really, but I know that there are, it's a whole genre of application, a bolt-on application to the property management system. So if you go into the Muse marketplace and look at sort of guest messaging or guest communication or whatever, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there, and that really ties into things like upsell as well. So dedicated upsell tools like Oki and things which are all designed to increase TREVPAR, which is total revenue per available room, rather than just RevPAR, which is revenue per available room. So it factors in all the ancillary stuff. And I'd say that TREVPAR certainly is certainly in the space we're at right now with like experiences being bundled in and all the OTAs trying to aggregate a whole bunch of different travel verticals. TREVPAR is going to be a really important metric for hotels because they're going to have to compete. They're going to have to start addressing the whole travel, all of the different verticals within travel.
Okay, I just want to go back to something there. So you mentioned a couple of things there. So earlier we were talking about Duve, and you're talking about TREVPAR, and you said a couple of other things which I didn't jot down. But if we're trying to have this guest messaging platform, are these systems or softwares, are they the answer itself? How do we communicate that guest communication, or the offers or the upsells? Are they all tied into one thing like Duve or TREVPAR? How does the customer get that in their hand? Are they downloading an app that the hotel has built, and we're using those systems to feed information into the app? What's the best way of the guest receiving those bits of information? Is that a clear question?
I think so. Essentially, it's we've got a lot of different systems out there. What's the best mechanically? How do people want to actually communicate? Now, I would answer this in the same way that I would answer the question of which sales channel is the most important. And the answer is, different people like to communicate in different ways. Different people like to buy in different ways. Some people, which is why businesses like Hotel Phone. If someone is struggling to book, they have an offer, a service called Booking Support, where let's say the reception can't answer every single call into the hotel, and they need a bit of help actually making the booking. They're there to actually get that person the right room, and actually just take bookings over the phone, because a lot of people like to do that. Similarly, live chat. Some people don't want to wait for an email response. Some people don't want to, but they also haven't got the time to call, probably because they're at work researching it. So that's where live chat comes in. And so I think the whole thing really is around choice. And I think the people that are certainly in the luxury space, and we see this, for example, the Other House. They've got an amazing app which does everything, right? It will do. Mm-hmm. You can call the lifts from it. You can, you can unlock your rooms and do all of these kind of things. Now that's wonderful, but does that mean that every single piece of communication and booking and everything is always going to go through the app for everybody? No, probably not, because there is a space for people to talk over the phone. There's a space for people to go onto the website, to book through a regular booking engine, to make email inquiries, and to communicate in other ways, because you have to. Guests want to communicate. Are so they're so diverse, and particularly in luxury. Traditionally you may have on the very sort of old school traditional hotels. Yes, it might have been quite an older demographic maybe visiting, but luxury spans a massive age range, and a massive preference range. And who are we to say exactly how they're going to get their communication? So if someone doesn't want to communicate via push notifications, that's fine. Just make but what it means is that you actually have, when you're choosing technology, you have to step back and look at it holistically. You have to think, am I just following the shiny stuff? Am I signing up to this thing because there's bold marketing claims and bold upsell claims? You just have to look at it holistically. And another reason why it's important to look at it in its entirety is because all the data being collected there might just be sat in its own silo, and that school of thought that we were talking about earlier around locking everything down and controlling that revenue stream, controlling that sort of vertical, I guess, within the marketing flow, you're going to run into some problems. So I don't know if that answers the question.
And I suppose what we're saying is you can't force people into communicating only one way because it suits you the best. As we were saying at the beginning of the episode, that we've got to meet guests' expectations, and therefore there are lots of different ways in which people like to communicate these days, whether it be through text message, whether it be through email, whether it be through social media, whether it be through WhatsApp, or whether they like to download any apps that you've created. Essentially, we want to be able to meet them where they are, but make sure that the hotel is set up to receive that information and feed that into one convenient place so that the hotel can manage it, which again goes back to the beginning, which is systems integration is making sure that it all ties together.
You've got people actually pulling like companies like Chanex and Hyperguest, and maybe, particularly Chanex in this instance. They've been spending the last few years essentially plumbing the hotel internet. They've got an incredible system that brings together so many different pieces of the tech stack, whether that's Booking.com messaging, whether it's rates and availability, PMS integrations, channel manager integrations, payment, PCI compliance. What they're doing is they're integrating into a whole bunch of different communication rates, reviews, all those sort of mechanics across the industry, and putting it into one API so that you can kind of consume that and deal with that all in one place. So there's people out there fighting the good fight, definitely.
I think we've kind of touched on the last point that we were going to make, was upsell services, but do you think we've covered that with?
I think a combination of automation and understanding who the guest is. I think those two concepts pull together very nicely to understand what you want to, like, how upsell is going to work. But yeah, again, a whole tranche of upsell of integration of platform, of systems and software as a service and everything. There's a whole range of stuff out there. But again, are we following the shiny stuff, or does it come together to form part of the holistic plan?
And I think with upselling, I think it's very important to, going back to what I was talking about earlier when we were talking about automated marketing, is understanding those specific types of customer that we really want to focus on, is understanding what is the best thing to upsell to them. And I'm thinking of some user research that we did recently, which was how people reacted to the order in which on the booking engine they saw a specific upsell. So sometimes if they saw something that was like champagne or flowers, which you can consider as a nice thing, but people can see that as like, oh, you're just trying to make some money from us. Whereas when they saw you can bring your dog and therefore pay that made their stay more convenient. So to the right customer, that doesn't seem as though you're taking their money or upselling to them. They're like, oh, brilliant, you're making my stay better. So I think there's a lot of investigation into what to sell up to who, and you've got to really know your customers in order to be able to make those judgments and play around with that.
Absolutely.
Anyway, right, let's wrap that up because that was a really long episode. I think we may need to break that into two.
We should test people's concentration.
Exactly. All right, well, thank you, Harry. I've loved having you here on the podcast.
I've loved being
this
here
week.
In my own house.
Yeah, we are recording from home today. Okay, well, thanks very much, and you've been a great guest.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for all your wonderful questions. I thought it was a really I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot, mainly by answering my own questions, but
yeah.
as when you start talking about it, figure things out. It's interesting.
Exactly.
I think the main thing that I actually thought, the biggest idea that I'm going to take from this, which I really want to go and implement now, is search demand alerts for our hotels. So, like, if anything's outside of a regular parameter, people get pinged. That'd be really interesting.
I'm going to look at some pretty graphs.
Enjoy. Cheers, Laurence. Bye.
All right. Cheers. Bye-bye.